Welcome to Intentionality with Paul Kempff, the podcast and YouTube channel where we explore the possibilities and opportunities that can be created by a more intentional life. This is episode 34, and if by now you haven't done it yet, please go and subscribe. Please follow us. Please share the link to this episode on social media. Let's get the message out there. Let's try and impact more lives. And thank you if you've already done so. Today on the couch, I am honored to be joined by our next guest on IWPK. And I want to say a very warm welcome to Thornton Fincham. Welcome, Thornton.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's an honor to be on the famous blue couch. This is going to be exciting.
It is, I agree. Excellent. Thornton, so the interesting thing about today's episode and you being here as a guest is we actually don't know each other. And you are now my second guest that I have. That is not somebody that I knew before I started this podcast. So you reached out to me after hearing the podcast. You said you're interested in us having a discussion. But the difference here is you approached me to appear on your podcast, to be a guest on your podcast. I'd love to hear more about it. Firstly, tell me, how did you get to hear about IWPK? Where did you find out about this podcast? And tell me more about your podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. So firstly, the way I discovered your podcast is simply just through the algorithm. So thank you, YouTube.
Okay.
Because I think my feed's flooded with similar stuff.
Yeah.
And I saw it and I kind of recognized your face from a course we did together, Life Work Leadership.
That's right, at the church.
Yes.
We did meet there, you're quite right.
So I'm like, I know this guy. And when I viewed the episode, it was super interesting. I think we're going to get there later, but it was super interesting to me. And I thought, okay, you don't get a lot of people that do podcasts. Oh, well, you do, but you don't get new people. You don't necessarily see the podcast with that's fresh and new. So I was like, okay, I'm also kind of new in brackets. So I want to reach out to you and see if we can collaborate, because I think the intentionality part on my side is also quite high, and it's in your name, in your podcast name. So I really wanted to touch base there, and that's why I reached out.
Glad you did, by the way. Thank you.
And thanks for responding. It was an exciting coffee, and I think it's going to be cool to have this chat and maybe do some cool stuff on my podcast as well. So my podcast is called The Guy Doing Things. So it's a very broad net that I just threw out because I wanted to do just general cool things, but with a purpose. And I think we'll also get there later, so I don't want to give too much away. But in short, I challenge myself to do things that make me uncomfortable, or my guests challenge me to do things that make me uncomfortable or something that I've never done before in order for me to grow and learn out of it. But I'll expand later.
This whole thing of a comfort zone, I spoke about it, I think, 2 episodes ago, where I was asked, why did I start this podcast? And one of the reasons I started the podcast was to get myself out of my comfort zone. And I must say, those first few episodes were very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
But you've been going longer than I have. I think you're up to episode 40. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're 41, and episode 42 is launching in a few days. Or by the time this airs, it would have already been launched. But yeah, it's been going on for five years. So I launched these episodes quite sporadically. Yeah. And the podcast kind of morphed. As I got out of that comfort zone and I grew, I kind of did more and more crazy things. So I say crazy, but I don't think it's necessarily that crazy, but it's for me, it felt crazy. So the podcast kind of grew like it had its own mind, like a little organism by itself. Yeah.
Okay. But it's super impressive. I think
Thank you so
told
much.
you briefly the other day when we had coffee, if you get past 20 episodes in a podcast, you are in the top 1% of all podcasts worldwide.
That means we're
club.
both. Yeah, we're in that club.
Absolutely.
We should get a medal somewhere.
I like that. I like that idea. you and I had coffee together the other day, and that wasn't nearly enough time to get to know you. I mean, I think we spent an hour together, and I think this is a great opportunity here on the Blue Couch, not only for me to get to know you better, but also for the listeners and the viewers to get to know you better. So here's my questions. Who's Thornton Fincham? What makes you tick? What makes you smile? What are you passionate about? What gets you up in the morning?
Awesome. I love that question. It's always initially awkward to answer it, because you always go like, I was born in Krugersdorp, and I'm not going to go there, but I was born in Krugersdorp.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say which high school I was in. We can maybe put it in the comments, but it's going to maybe get a little bit of slack from that. But yeah, I like to call myself a structured creative. And I know it's kind of the two words are very, they are not necessarily in the same league. So structure and creative, you don't necessarily put those together. But I realized as I grew and I got to know myself, I like structure. So I like to, work in blocks, but I'm a creative. So in that block, I want to do awesome stuff. And as I also grew and got to learn more about myself, I realized my passion is to dream and cast vision. So wherever I can be creative and cast vision in any environment, for me is where I completely thrive. And that's why I get up in the morning. I get to work with people and be creative and kind of dream these big vision dreams. And then obviously I need to have a team surrounding me to say, okay, massive dream, cool, let's make it practical, let's break it up in parts. But yeah, that's why I think I'm here. And I'm extremely passionate about being creative and dreaming for a better future, and then kind of seeing how that dreams get to put on paper, get to be put on paper. So if I can do that, I'll never work a day in my life. If I can do those two things, dream big and work with people.
Awesome. I've spoken many times in this podcast about dreaming big. I've got this thing called BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Oh, yes.
It's something I'm known for and something that I love pursuing in my life. You also speak about structurally creative.
Yeah.
To me, that feels like engaging both sides of your brain. You know that thing about the two hemispheres in your brain?
Yeah.
It feels to me like you're one of those guys that can actually access both sides. Is that right?
Yeah, I did in high school, the high school that I shall not mention. I did music, so I have grade 6 double bass, which is the big violin, the stand-up violin. And I also did, and I also had accounting, which is one of my best subjects. So I think those two don't necessarily work together, but to me it does. And I think that created the little version of what I am now and what I'm busy growing into.
Oh, that's fantastic. You live close by. I think we almost neighbors. You married? Is that right?
Yes.
Kids yet?
No, not yet. But we do have a dog child called Snowy. She has a personality of her own. We are planning on having kids, just not yet. We're only married for 2 years now, and exploring the wonderful treasures of a marriage. So, and I think obviously it will be enhanced with kids, but not yet. I think we're still just enjoying free time.
Awesome. I want to go back to your podcast. There's something interesting that came out of our coffee the other day. There's something you're doing with CEOs at the moment in your life.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that? Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I like to dream big, and one of my big dreams is to become a CEO or a C-suite executive. And I think where intentionality comes in, and that's why your podcast is was so attractive to me, because the intentionality behind knowing that one day I want to be there, and then reverse engineering it to where I am today. I ask myself, okay, what can I do now? And you can read books, and I have read a lot of books, and I love reading books, but I don't think you kind of get behind a person. So I started an initiative that I do offline called CEO Sessions, that I just engage with CEOs. I ask them 5 questions. I tell them I'm going to ask you 5 questions under half an hour, because I know CEOs don't necessarily have a lot of time. And usually we go on beyond an hour, because they're just so full of knowledge and they want to share it. And I experience that with all of the CEOs that I've done it with. And the reason I'm doing it offline is just to kind of focus on the CEO and what they're saying, not necessarily on the production around it. But what I then do is I kind of make a summary of those sessions and then post it as an article on LinkedIn. And then hopefully with a CEO close by, I can also do a challenge that will be recorded on the podcast as well. Wink, wink.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy. I really see some form of collaboration here in the future, and I'd love us to explore it further. There's a couple of other things I want to pick up on what you've said. Firstly, you're still very young. You're 28. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you do still have some time to get to that CEO position that you're going for.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's a podcast that I have listened to, and I hope I get it right now, called Diary of a CEO. Have you listened to that
Stephen
one?
Bartlett, yeah.
Yes.
I love his stuff, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good source of information as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Want to know more about what a CEO does every day.
Yeah. It's a great wealth of knowledge, the podcast.
Yeah, but hopefully one of these days, very soon, we can do something together. Now, I must just say, I'm not yet a CEO.
Yeah.
I'm the managing director at the moment of the company I work for. But if you wait just a little bit, it's around the corner. Then I can talk to you as a CEO.
I do believe, and I think my wife will laugh at this part of the podcast, I do believe I'm a patient 28-year-old.
Okay.
So I have the patience to wait until you have the official title, and then we can do something cool.
Awesome. Looking forward
on my podcast as well.
I also like the idea of the challenges that's thrown out to you. I think you need to challenge other people as well, but I like the idea of thinking up a challenge for you. And it brings me back to the name of your podcast, The Guy Doing Things.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that name? How did you decide to start the podcast?
So it sounds very random, but there's purpose behind it. And I grew up very afraid. Like I was still grade 7 and then called my mom to come and pick me up at a sleepover. So by that age, you shouldn't be doing that anymore.
Yeah.
But I was just so afraid. And people would, on a farm, they would jump off a bridge into the river and I wouldn't do it. Yeah. All those type of things. I was very afraid. And when I went to high school, they kind of, the peer pressure, which is a good peer pressure, they kind of just said, okay, but you're doing it. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then they would go, but you are. So I would in grade 8, I played ping pong because they just said, listen, they need ping pong guys or table tennis. And I played. And I kind of, I taught myself there to intentionally put myself out of my comfort zone. There's that word again. Mm-hmm. But that's the only place you learn is out of your comfort zone. And the Guy Doing Things is not, it's a general name because I want to do a bunch of things. For instance, I did MMA for 30 days and then had a fight after those 30 days without having any experience in fighting.
How did that fight go?
I won.
Wonderful.
Which is amazing. There's a video on Facebook, so I'm not lying. I'll share the video. Okay. I did win. And then I also ate like a vegan for a month and then interviewed the founders of Fry's Family Food after that month. Yeah. So those are the things that kind of would have made me uncomfortable, eating funny food or being in an octagon. But the things that I do kind of put me out of the comfort zone. That's why if I ask the people to challenge me, it can be weird or wonderful because I know it should kind of make me feel uncomfortable.
I love that. The one thing for the listeners, if they go and look for your podcast, I made this mistake. There's a lot of podcasts with similar names. I picked up A Guy Doing Things, and I picked up Guys Doing Things, but yours is The Guy Doing Things. Is that
the
right?
one? It almost sounds cocky, like Jose Mourinho saying, I'm the special one. Yeah. But I'm the guy doing things.
You're the special one. Okay. No, I like that. I really like that. Maybe our production team can put something on the screen around.
Please. I'll go
something like that. All right. You know, of course, the name of this podcast is Intentionality with Paul Kempff. So I'm going to ask you the question that I ask all my guests. Is there anything you do in your life intentionally on a daily, weekly basis that helps you to be successful, to be as successful as you've been at such an early age?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the intentionality for me specifically translates to my marriage. So we, with my wife, when we started dating and pursuing each other, we said, okay, there's a lot of what not to do's in our life around us, regarding specifically regarding marriage. And what we then asked ourselves was, okay, how can we then kind of fireproof, not necessarily fireproof, but yeah, let's say fireproof ourselves against kind of becoming lazy or, just going day by day. So we are extremely intentional in our marriage, up to a point where, some people think we're rude with each other, but we're very straightforward, intentionally straightforward with each other, because we know it grows. It grows us both. And the reason we pick intentionality, specifically in a marriage, is you kind of get lost in an 8 to 5. You wake up, you quickly say a prayer, you eat together, go to work, come back, watch Modern Family, sleep, and do the whole thing again. But intentionality, and we actually call it pause moments. So there are times, there are times where we're busy and we're frantic, then physical contact's important to us. So I would touch her hand or shoulder and say, let's do a pause moment quickly. And then she'll go, so yeah, I love you, please. If you feel I've insulted you, I think that's a cool thing you do. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But that pause moment just helps us to both kind of remind ourselves, okay, this is why we're doing it. And that kind of grows intentionality out of marriage as well. Now we're intentional with our work, we're intentional with our friendships, with what we do. We don't just pick up a sport for picking up a sport. When we train for a race. When we cook food that tastes nice, that has great flavors in. So we really try to push the boundaries. We go and look for a recipe and for something we haven't tasted before. So it kind of, if you're used to intentionality, it pops up everywhere.
Wow, I definitely have to get my wife to listen to this episode. I like this idea of that moment that you take when things get too much and maybe emotions flare up.
Yeah. We'll come and cook dinner at your house and then show you how we do the pause moments.
Deal.
Okay.
I like that. We've come to the end of the episode. Can you believe it? I mean, time has flown.
Goodness.
It flies.
We'll do a part 2.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
At the end of every episode, I love to give the listeners and the viewers a tip of the week. Sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a quote, sometimes it's a good movie I've seen.
Yeah.
But I would love it if you can give us a tip of the week. Have you got one that you can share with us?
Can I be sneaky and give 2?
Yes, of course. Go for it.
Okay.
We've got time.
So the first tip is the motto I live by, and I learned it from an international business school in San Francisco. I didn't go there, but I attended a few online classes, and the lecturer said her life motto, and I kind of borrowed it, or stole it, and it really just helps me to focus my life. It says, "Be great, be grateful, help others, and finish strong." Those are the 4 sentences that kind of make my life go and move. And then the second
repeat it, please, because I really like this. So it's be great,
be
grateful,
help others,
and finish strong. Love it.
So that really, it's powerful, it's short, and it helps. So the second tip that I want to give is to go and watch the movie Dead Poets Society. Brilliant movie. We actually watched it in school, and it just changed my perspective on, thinking outside the box. And I know I mentioned that I'm a structured creative, but the creativity happening inside my structure or inside my box was completely influenced by that. The whole Carpe Diem mantra also is something that is so cool. Every day you get up, you have to realize it's a gift, and that day is 24 hours. You can do something amazing with your life, and that's what that movie taught me. So, along with my motto, the 4 sentences, and the movie, I think if you combine those 2, you'll be awesome.
Okay, now you have just extended this episode by another 2 or 3 minutes because we have to talk about Dead Poets Society.
Okay.
If you go back to one of my episodes, and for the life of me, I cannot remember which one it is, I actually gave a tip of the week. It was Dead Poets Society, and I quoted a line from the Dead Poets Society because it's officially one of my all-time favorite movies. You've mentioned Carpe Diem, seize the day.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the most beautiful moments in that movie is right at the end when Robin Williams is fired and he
Yeah.
has to leave the class and they all get on the chairs
Oh, Captain.
or on the desks. Oh, Captain, my captain.
Yeah.
And then there's this quote, and I can't remember the quote for the life of me now, but it's something about sucking out the marrow of life.
Yeah.
It is such a beautiful, such a inspiring movie.
Yeah. And the when he looked at the photos and he said, all of these, do you hear that?
Yeah,
Because he said all of these people now are pushing daisies.
yeah. That's
But what did they do in this photo? In this photo, they were the dreamers. They were walking these hallways, dreaming of becoming the next big superstar. And now you guys are here. So what are you going to do with it? Seize the day. So if I ever get tired or lazy, I just hear,
lovely.
then I go, okay, go out for a run.
You've just now set the standard for all tips of the week that we have to get to. It's a high level and a high standard you've set, so well done.
I appreciate the compliment. Thanks, Paul.
Excellent. And that brings us to the end of the episode. Can you believe it? All that's left to do is really just to thank my production team for all the hard work that they do every single episode behind the scenes. I want to thank our sponsor, FFG, for the continued support of this podcast and this YouTube channel. I really believe we're building something amazing here. If you want to get hold of me, please send me an email to paul@iwpk.co.za. And all that's left is our normal ending, where I want to congratulate you on making the choice of living a more intentional life, being the architect of your own success. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And may the rest of your week be an amazing intentional journey.